Today, we're going to start with a story. This isn't a story like a once upon a time story or even a happily ever after story. This is a story that begins with empathy. And it starts before I even knew what that word meant. My prized childhood possession is a Barbie Jeep. While I have no idea what happened to the original driver, today it bears no resemblance to Mattel's original designs. Attached with duct tape is a soda bottle rocket engine powered by Coca-Cola and Mentos. Very sustainable. Perhaps strange to some, this was perfectly natural to me. I knew it just had to be done. Math and science, with the world as my lab, has always played a big part in my life. It's driven that curiosity and need to know how, what if, why, and why not. How could I attach parachutes to my stuffed animals to teach them how to skydive? What if I made a PVC air-compressed potato cannon? Why not take apart every electronic I could get my hands on? Computers, displays, fax machines, vacuums, whatever. Obviously, some of these with permission, most of them not with. So, as the years progressed, that curiosity eventually manifested into what I now know is my love for engineering. And when it came to picking colleges, Georgia Tech was perfect. The moment I arrived here, I knew I'd found my place, found my people. And as I started traveling through my engineering career, I really hit that, that workload. We all know what that is. And something happened that had never happened to me before in my life. I got bored. How could I be bored? I was learning so much. I was getting all this knowledge, but something was missing. And still, I couldn't put the words to what that was. What was missing from my classes that made them boring? And then one semester, I took one of the core ME classes, and it had two words in it that really excited me: creative and design. For those of you who don't know the class, it's the make or break ME class that teaches you both how to physically and theoretically solve engineering problems. And one of the problems that we had to solve that year was how to build a wheelchair that elevates. Awesome, this is awesome, it's really cool. But again, something was missing, and I didn't know what that was. And at the same time, I was taking another class called Design Methods, which focused on user research. The main thing they taught you from that class was you are not the customer. You're not who's being designed for. In order to best solve for them, you need to put yourself in their shoes. And if you physically can't do that, you need to get them to open up to you and tell you what they need, what they want. And that is when things started to make sense. The reason I couldn't design this wheelchair was because I'd never sat in a wheelchair. How could I build something that was so important to someone when I didn't know what they needed, what motivated them? And that was when I understood. The thing that had been missing from my classes, the thing that was missing from my vocabulary, was purpose and empathy. Most importantly, empathy. The conflict that those two classes created really helped me put words to my feelings. And what I needed was design thinking. Design thinking builds ideas from the end user's perspective and keeps their wants and desires in mind during the entire process. Engineers are often taught that we're the smartest ones in the room. Give us a problem, fine, we got it. Give us this equation, it's literally only a matter of time. But that mentality breeds ignorance. Just because you can build something doesn't mean that you've built it right. That's where design thinking comes in. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm an engineer by training. I love what I do. But when you start asking those hows, whys, what ifs, that's when really interesting things happen. So we're going to rewind the clock now to about the 70s. And we're going to talk about one of the pioneers of design thinking and design methods, Patricia Moore. She worked as an industrial designer at an international design firm in the 70s and was tasked with a project to design a refrigerator for the elderly. She started asking these questions too. So over the next several years, She actually ended up traveling to over 100 different cities in the US. One, dressed as her 20-year-old something self, and then she'd go back and recreate it, but this time, oh, forgot that one. But this time, dressed like this, an 80-year-old woman. She would bind her hands and her feet, or her ankles and her wrists to mimic arthritis. She would put castor oil in her eyes to mimic cataracts. She was completely unrecognizable, and her findings were shocking. The disparity and the difference between the world that she lived in and functioned in was completely different from those of the elderly. She was mistreated and misunderstood. She was actually even assaulted on several different occasions. All of this information is detailed in her book. But this is where design thinking comes in. How do you get to those questions? How do you get to the bottom of these problems? How do we teach a generation to do that? And that's exactly what's happening here at the Georgia Tech Innovation and Design Collaborative, also known as the Design Block. The Design Block is Georgia Tech's only multidisciplinary initiative that teaches Georgia Tech, who are known to be the toughest problem solvers in the world, to become thoughtful problem framers. Let's think about that. Toughest problem solvers, thoughtful problem framers. The ability to solve any problem you are given and remain purposeful and conscious the entire time. That is design thinking. I gave the pop quiz away, but it's time for a pop quiz. So take out your pencils, because we're doing a statics problem. Yeah, all right? No, not really. We'll just talk about it. So for those of you who haven't seen this, this is a statics problem. So what do? What's the first thing that we do when we're given this? Yeah. Free body diagrams, forces, assumptions, knowns. Awesome, A+. It's like the first one. So, but now I challenge you, let's apply design thinking to this. Have you ever seen something like this in real life with point A and B labeled? No. Have you seen arrows on it? No. Who is this for? Why are they using it? What's their actual problem? Do they even need this? I don't know. I haven't asked the questions yet. We need to talk to someone. And that is design thinking. Building ideas for the end user, keeping in mind their wants and desires throughout the entire process. And to teach design behaviors, there are 5 main tenets, 5 core beliefs. Here they are: creative craft, contextual awareness, rapid iteration, empathy, and entrepreneurial sustainability. Today, we've already talked about empathy, but remember, there's 4 more things to discuss. And these 5 tenets are the ways that we communicate that to the student body. We do that through classes like these. So let's take, for example, the class Transportation Design, which is an MEID capstone sponsored by General Motors. The prompt for the class is design a car, or maybe just a transportation device, for the year 2060. But it's going to be for our generation, my generation. What are we going to need when we become the elderly population? What are we going to need what are our needs when it comes to transportation? Let's find out. We also hold workshops outside academia. For example, let's talk about one that we actually held today. The idea was to understand the homeless population in Atlanta. People coming into this workshop, like all of you today, have your own beliefs, understanding, and experiences, and biases, for better or for worse. We take these understandings, and then we actually send you out into the street. We give you clothes, we give you signs to make, and you talk to people to understand the empathy that goes along with this and the humility that comes with asking for help. This better understanding allows you to better solve problems. And better yet, this isn't just happening at Georgia Tech. This is happening around the country at different universities, and it's also creating a fundamental shift in the way that companies are thinking. For every $1 that is put into research and design using design thinking, you get an output of $2,500. That is huge. That is huge. Just by understanding who you're designing for, the profits are amazing. It's guessed that about 80% of the products on the market today fail because they don't understand who the user is. So now it's time to reflect. And I challenge you. All of you guys are problem solvers. Whether you are an engineer like I am, or maybe a musician, a doctor, an entrepreneur, whatever you are, you solve problems. So now, take that understanding for design thinking and ask yourself, what can design thinking do for you? Thank you.